Attorney General Sessions, possible shakeup at the White House, and what is clearly a decision by President Trump to turn the tables and go on offense. It's important to understand, before we get into the Sessions matter, that the FISA court declaration at the end of last year nails President Barack Obama and his entire front line on the intel community for the illegal, unconstitutional, willful surveillance of tens of thousands of Americans for specifically political reasons. Coupling that with the massive scandals at the Clinton Foundation, Donald Trump has two major leverage points on his opponents. He can, never mind the Russian collusion delusion, turn the table on his tormentors. And his disappointment in Jeff Sessions is based on Sessions' either inability or unwillingness to do either. Now comes word from my sources that the president has decided to replace Mr. Sessions, but the leading candidate for that position, at least as of this moment, is CIA Director Richard Pompeo. This is troubling for a number of reasons. First of all, Pompeo, who was a supporter of Julian Assange and WikiLeaks during the election, has become a captive of the mandarins at the CIA. Only a month ago, repeating the canard that there was some proof that WikiLeaks and Assange are cutouts for the Russians. This is false. And then there is even more troubling, Pompeo's speech to the Aspen Institute, widely praised by John Brennan, the CIA director under Barack Obama, in which he parroted, once again, the anti-Russian line. In view of the incredible progress the president is making on Syria by engaging a dialogue with the Russians, the appointment of a deep stater like Pompeo at justice would seem to preclude the prosecutions of the Obama intelligence community, including, of course, the CIA. You heard it all first here at InfoWars. Additionally, there is much speculation after the firing of Sean Spicer about the fate of White House Chief of Staff Reince Priebus. First of all, the president deserves kudos, in my opinion, for the appointment of Sarah Huckabee Sanders as his chief spokeswoman and the White House press secretary. This is a strong appointment. She's been doing a much better job defending the president and speaking on his behalf than Spicer, and in my view, she well deserves the job. So congratulations to Sarah Huckabee Sanders. In the meantime, however, it appears that there is a three-way decision that the president has before him regarding the White House Chief of Staff. On this list are David Urban, a decorated veteran, a former Chief of Staff on Capitol Hill, to U.S. Senator Arlen Specter, but nonetheless, a hardline Trump loyalist who ran the nuts and bolts campaign on the ground in Pennsylvania, someone the president knows well, and someone who has both administrative skills and political skills. Urban was the administrative assistant to perhaps the meanest, toughest, smartest, and most difficult member of the U.S. Senate, Arlen Specter. This does not in any way reflect the politics of Urban himself, who is a solid Trumpite from the beginning, and in my view, responsible for the historical win in Pennsylvania. Also, unbelievably, in the running is Dina Habib Powell. She is a former member of the George W. Bush White House staff, a certified globalist. Her best friends, Valerie Jarrett, also Huma Abedin, and then, of course, Condi Rice. She was very successful in squeezing Rick Grenell, another key Trump supporter, out of the position of NATO ambassador, delivering that to former Texas Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison, a certified Trump hater, a never Trumper who had nothing good to say about candidate Trump during the election. And then also a wild card, and you'll be hearing this first at InfoWars, General John Kelly, currently the head of Homeland Security, is also in contention for the position of White House Chief of Staff. Researching Kelly, the first thing that pops up is his status as an unreconstructed drug warrior, someone who agrees with Jeff Sessions on the question of refiring up the failed, expensive, and I think proven disaster that was the war on drugs, first initiated by my mentor, Richard Nixon. It is hard to determine, with Kelly's military background, whether he is in fact a globalist, and we're researching that. But in the meantime, it's very important that the president understand that his next administrative assistant, his next chief of staff, should be someone with both administrative skills, but also political skills. General Kelly, without any question, has administrative skills, but that does not speak to his understanding of the core Trump constituency that won the election and is sustaining the president now as he tries to govern in the face of a mainstream media onslaught that is unrelenting. So there you have it, Urban Habib Powell or General John Kelly. This is, again, an InfoWars exclusive. We are also, I think, able to say that Anthony Scaramucci has already brought a breath of fresh air as the White House communications director. The leakers are now recoiling and trying to hide. Scaramucci made it very clear that he would root out and fire those who continue to leak to the president's detriment. But what of the leaking going on in the intelligence community? Only last week, yet again, the intelligence community leaked a document that showed Russian Ambassador Kislyak telling his superiors that when he met with Jeff Sessions, they did discuss the presidential campaign. This is contrary to what Sessions has said publicly and under oath. And frankly, I think it is the last straw for Mr. Sessions. Unfortunately, the Attorney General's made several mistakes. One is his failure to prosecute Obama, Ben Rhodes, Susan Rice, Valerie Jarrett, Admiral Rogers, and yes, John Brennan, for the willful, unconstitutional surveillance of tens of thousands of Americans, and then the use of that surveillance information for political purposes. 10 times worse than anything that happened during Watergate. Secondarily has been his aforementioned failure to prosecute Bill and Hillary Clinton on the scam that was the Clinton Foundation. The Clinton Foundation was never a charity. It was a slush fund for grifters. One wonders how Bill and Hillary paid for Chelsea's $6 million wedding utilizing Clinton Foundation funds. Also problematic for Jeff Sessions is his obsession with busting people for using medicinal marijuana in the 29 states where it is legal, completely contrary to what candidate Donald Trump assured the millions of Americans currently using marijuana for medicinal purposes during the campaign. And then there is Jeff Sessions' comments in Nevada only 2 weeks ago, where he commented on the Bundy case currently going to trial in a Nevada courtroom, thus tainting the jury and potentially creating a motion for mistrial. Some of you may remember when President Richard Nixon, in the middle of Charles Manson's trial for mass murder, said, "Manson is guilty, we know it," and the liberals in the media went insane. Why is this different? How could Attorney General Sessions, an officer of the court, not understand that the comments praising the prosecution for the pursuit of the Bundys taints that trial and is completely and totally inappropriate? I'll be back in just a moment.
All right, that's Roger Stone. As you heard him say at the very beginning, Trump is going to go on offense. That's something that Roger Stone and Alex Jones said from the very first moment of the Trump administration. They said, you're going to have to go on offense. If you don't go on offense, they're going to be attacking you, and that's what we have seen for the last 6 months. A very important turn of events. Also, a good name, David Urban, for Chief of Staff, but some very, very troubling names. We see Dina Habib, Goldman Sachs Powell, being offered forward as a possible candidate for Chief of Staff. Very concerning. So stay with us. We'll be right back with more from Roger Stone.
Well, I thought that they were going to put a bunch of attention on this Obamacare repeal vote and then try to steal attention away from anything else with it. It looks like that's the case. They're now saying they think they have the votes in the Senate. I'm not celebrating that until I see it. John McCain returns to the floor, bashes talk radio, right back to prime form for John McCain, goes right to bashing talk radio. Thanks for that, John McCain. Bernie Sanders says he doesn't want to have to call parents because children are going to die from the repeal of Obamacare. Well, Bernie Sanders, you're not going to call anyone. You're a total fraud anyway. And we already know what government health care does. It kills. Just ask Charlie Gard. But the big news is right now it looks like Senator Sessions is going to be on his way out the door. Roger Stone broke that. He had the breaking news as well as the people that might be being considered to replace the Attorney General labeled as beleaguered from President Trump. Roger, I'd like to ask you this. The Washington Post ran the headline that I forget exactly who it was spinning around in a whirlwind. I think it was Sessions spinning in a whirlwind. Sessions spinning in a whirlwind created by Trump. I think that Sessions and Trump are probably in communications, and Sessions knows what's going on. I'd like your insight on that, as well as who is really in the whirlwind here. Is it Sessions or is it the liberal media?
Well, and I think the president is genuinely disappointed in Jeff Sessions, as I am, and I think we all should be. He came to office with a terrific reputation. He's been a real leader in the Senate on immigration issues. But on the key points here, he's completely MIA. He has declined. As you know, he recused himself, I think, unnecessarily on Russia, although perhaps he knew that he had discussed the campaign, contrary to his public comments, and I believe his sworn testimony, and now contrary to a document that conveniently leaked from the intelligence community, in which Kislyak, the Russian ambassador, claims that he did talk politics and the campaign with Sessions. He's been missing on the prosecution of the Clintons. He'd been missing on the prosecution of the Obama gang for wiretapping. His asset forfeiture program is something Adolf Hitler would be proud of. He is wants to relaunch the war on drugs, shearing off a giant piece of the Trump liberty-based constituency.
Yes.
You can see why the president is upset. Jeff Sessions is MIA. Where is he? When he does exert himself, it's on the wrong issues.
Roger, let me join in there and say, you know, when we all got angry, and rightfully so, I think, when Comey refused to prosecute Hillary Clinton. But now we understand that Sessions is doing the same thing, and he's taking it to another level. As you pointed out before, this isn't a supposition, this isn't your opinion, that the FBI and the NSA violated the law when they surveilled the Trump campaign, when they unmasked individuals. That was the FISA court that said that. So there's no question at all about this. The FISA court has looked very carefully at this, and they said, yes, there was a violation of the law by the FBI, by the NSA at the bare minimum. Why isn't the Attorney General prosecuting them? And again, still letting Hillary off the hook as we had FBI Director Comey do?
Well, and if I may steal a line from others, what did the president know and when did he know it? Hard for me to believe that Barack Obama was unaware of the illegal surveillance of tens of thousands of people, all of whom happen to be political opponents of this administration. Anyone who has not read the Circa News stories on this by John Solomon and Sarah Carter should do so. It's funny how none of this appeared on the front pages of the Washington Post or the New York Times.
Yes.
You won't find it on CNN, but it is a scandal far bigger than Watergate. And it is the key to the president's survival. Stone's rules: you do not win on defense. Here he has his opponents by the short hairs in an outrageously illegal and unconstitutional spying operation, and his attorney general is dithering around trying to prosecute people for smoking pot to improve their health. Sessions is just an abysmal failure. And I know Donald Trump for 40 years. When he hits you in 4 tweets, he's sending you a message.
Yeah.
Jeff Sessions is toast.
When you said earlier that the only name that you mentioned as a possible successor to Sessions was Pompeo, is there anybody else's name there? Because, I mean, as you pointed out before, he's got connections to the deep state, and he's got connections to the intelligence community. And I said, you know, the real issue here is electspionage that we've had here. Is election espionage by our own intelligence community. Is a member of the intelligence community really going to come after those people?
You have just capsulized my concern exactly, David, and that is the president is high on Pompeo. But I don't think he understands that Pompeo will not prosecute the boys at Langley for their role in the illegal spying on the Trump campaign, Trump associates, and other Republicans. And there is the nut of the problem. One must wonder what happened to Pompeo.
We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. Owen Schroyer, David Knight. We have Roger Stone on the line as well, breaking down the developments in the White House today. The momentum is shifting against Jeff Sessions and towards an aggressive White House that wants to go on the offense. Speaking of offensive, John McCain. You know, I didn't want to come on here and bash the guy who just got brain cancer. I don't know if we have the clip. You guys may not have gotten the clip yet. Just go ahead and play John McCain reintroducing himself on the Hill today. Go ahead.
I hope we can again rely on humility, on our need to cooperate, on our dependence on each other, to learn how to trust each other again, and by so doing better, serve the people who elected us. Stop listening to the bombastic loudmouths on the radio and television and the internet. To hell with them.
I got news. To hell with you, McCain. To hell with you. I didn't want to attack you. I didn't want to deal with you. You just got brain cancer, but you came after us. Get him out of here. I'm done with him. To hell with you, John McCain. And I got news for John McCain, who says he wants to be reaching out to the people that got him elected. Guess what, buddy? We're the media now. We get people elected. We got Trump elected. We're going to be in charge in the 2018 midterm elections. Get used to it. And all that globalist ass kissing you're doing right now for life extension technology, you're not going to get it, McCain. Excuse me. That's my rant on McCain. David,
well, he wants to talk about people cooperating. Well, let's talk about his cooperation or collusion with ISIS. How many people have suffered and died in just that one country because of the actions of John McCain acting as al-Qaeda's weapon source, as ISIS's weapon source? That's the thing that is really key. But let's go back to Roger, because he pointed out how the Trump administration is shifting from a defense mode. He said one of his key rules, and this is something that Roger and Alex said from day one, Trump had to go on offense. We talked about how Attorney General Sessions has refused to come after former Director James Comey, who allowed Hillary Clinton a pass. We were all upset about that. He hasn't gone after Hillary. He hasn't gone after the man who colluded with her to give her a pass, who obstructed justice by giving her a pass. And he hasn't gone after the people, the FBI, the NSA, the FISA court. This is not my opinion. This is not Roger Stone's opinion. This is the opinion of the FISA court, that the FBI, the NSA violated the Fourth Amendment, violated the FISA Act, violated the laws of the United States to go after the Trump campaign and to surveil them and to unmask them. That's the key issue. So we need a fighter, but we're very concerned about the name that Roger has put up here, Pompeo. I agree, Roger. I think we're going to have a situation where, just like Jeff Sessions doesn't want to go after his colleagues in Washington, I'm concerned the same thing is going to happen with Pompeo, who doesn't want to go after his colleagues in the intelligence community. It may wind up exactly in the same place where we are right now.
I think that's a very legitimate concern, David. First of all, let me address John McCain. There seems to be some new argument that because he's ill, he's now immune from criticism. I wish him well. I wish him Godspeed and a speedy recovery from his surgery. But that does not mean that he should be immune to criticism. His trafficking of a fake document, a fake dossier smearing Donald Trump amounts to treason, in my opinion, against the President of the United States. He has said...
And Trump still supports him, by the way.
...is worse than Watergate. I don't know what he's talking about. We can't find any collusion. He said Barack Obama was a greater president than Donald Trump. He traffics with ISIS, his institute, which he would have us believe he doesn't control, even though everyone who works there came from his Senate staff, has taken millions from the Saudis. John McCain is a disgrace. This is a guy I supported for president, not once but twice. And I'm gravely disappointed in the way he has conducted himself. I can only suggest to you that perhaps his erratic, explosive, irrational behavior, his violent outbursts, and his trucking with the enemy may have been caused by pressure from his brain tumor.
Well, I don't know. It seems like, Roger, he's always used his POW status and his injuries from the war. He's used that to shield himself from criticism. Now it seems like he's using the brain cancer to shield himself from criticism while he goes on the attack against others.
And he's about to gear up for another Senate run. If he's that sick, he can't even think clearly because of a brain tumor, why is he running for Senate again?
Well, he just got elected in the fall.
I'm going to be speaking in Tucson tomorrow, and I'm going to be very careful. I recognize that he is gravely ill, and I respect that, and I really do wish him a speedy recovery from his health problems. But that should not make him immune from any criticism of his public record. I don't understand why the Republicans in the Senate haven't censured him for trafficking in phony intelligence documents.
Yes.
Frankly, if I were the president, I would tell Mitch McConnell, either the Senate Republicans censure John McCain, or you can kiss your wife, the Secretary of Transportation, who's doing nothing whatsoever to make America great again. She can kiss her job as Secretary of Transportation goodbye.
You know, this is actually an interesting thought I just had creep into my head, because we've been talking about the notion or the paradigm that it's Washington establishment, it's the D.C. deep state versus the people. Trump represents the people. Everyone in D.C. looks out for their own, including Jeff Sessions, it appears. Maybe this is what McCain was saying. Maybe McCain went to the floor and he was actually talking to everyone on the Hill today saying, all of my brothers and sisters in Congress, screw the people on TV, screw the people in radio, forget the fact that everyone listens to them. We're in charge. We're the D.C. establishment. I'm John McCain. And he gets them all fired up. Maybe that's what he was doing. Do you think I'm out of line there?
Well, it's very hard to say. In all honesty, I think he's become increasingly erratic and mentally unbalanced. I'm not surprised that he's not well. I've been trying to figure out his behavior now for some time. Remember, this is someone I've known since he came to Washington as a conservative Republican congressman. I supported him over George W. Bush. I supported him in the pivotal Florida primary where he was nominated, essentially where he wrapped up the nomination. And his behavior towards a president of his own party and towards the movement that elected Donald Trump is reprehensible. Why doesn't he just switch to become a Democrat? That would make a lot more sense. He seems to be more comfortable with them anyway.
Let's trade Tulsi Gabbard for John McCain.
I'd make that deal tomorrow.
That would make sense. Tulsi Gabbard calls out John McCain's terrorist in Syria, and John McCain's the Republican, though.
Well, you know, when we had the Comey hearings, everybody was talking about John McCain, and it clearly appeared at that point in time that he was not in full possession of his faculties. So people were saying, is this dementia? Is it some other issue? And as the blood clot issue came, that was one of the things that people talked about, possible brain tumor. So we do, as you said, wish him well in terms of his personal health, but there's not anybody I could find in Washington that I would disagree with any more strongly. There's many that I would disagree with as strongly as John McCain, but he clearly has been the leader of the opposition. And as we all pointed out before the election, Donald Trump's greatest opposition was going to come from within the GOP, from the establishment of the GOP. And that's what we see now with Boehner saying earlier today, Roger, I don't know if you saw that or not, that we're not ever going to have a repeal of Obamacare, and then laughing about the fact that Trump used to give him money, but Trump wasn't his first or even his second or third choice, so forth and so on. At the same time, Donald Trump said that if they don't repeal Obamacare, that is going to be death to the Republican Party. And Exhibit A is John Boehner, who is no longer there because he refused to do what he campaigned on. He refused to deliver on the promises to the Republican Party, and so it was the conservatives who pushed him out. Aren't they the people that Donald Trump needs to coalesce around, the House Freedom Caucus, of people who really do want to do what they told the voters who voted for them?
Yeah, I think this was a major failure of Reince Priebus. You'll recall that the first health care bill that was put forward by Paul Ryan, but in fact actually drafted by John Boehner, was abysmal, was a laydown for the medical industry and a nightmare for the taxpayers. That went down in flames. Is it any surprise now that Paul Ryan yesterday comes out and says that Robert Mueller is some kind of a second coming of Christ, a man of great integrity, when in fact Mueller is just a stooge for the Clintons and the Bushes and the deep state, still chasing after a crime that he can't seem to define because he doesn't have one.
That's right.
Then we learned that he's going to go back into the president's business career before he was in politics. Relevance? Relevance is what? Just an inalterable attempt to ride this out until the 2018 elections, hoping that the Democrats win the House, and then he can hang any charge on the president he wants, perjury, any phony charge, which the Democrats would then use as grounds for impeachment.
We already had a story today as an example of that, Roger, on the Daily Mail, calling out Donald Trump and say he just leaked on himself, and then having a former CIA employee say, well, it looks like he leaked out some classified information, when Donald Trump said, hey, the fake Amazon Washington Post is talking about what happened with Syrian arms and support for that. He didn't even say anything about the CIA, and yet we got the CIA coming out here with a story that everybody knows has been out in the open about the fact that the CIA and John McCain have been giving arms to the Syrian rebels. That's what they're very upset about. The CIA is upset about that. So we get one former employee saying, oh, well, we could come after Donald Trump for this. At the same time, we get John Brennan coming out and saying, hey, we need to have a coup against him if he does anything with Robert Mueller. They can use any pretense to come after him and impeach him if the Democrats have a majority in the House.
You know, if I had 5 minutes with Jeff Sessions, I'd ask him one question. Why hasn't John Brennan been arrested?
Yes.
Why hasn't he been indicted? He is up to his neck in the illegal surveillance and the leaking illegally of surveillance material. He makes it obvious. And as disgusted as I was by the memo by Kislyak, the Russian ambassador, which said that he did discuss the campaign with Jeff Sessions, I'm more concerned with the fact that that memo leaked in violation of the law. When will this leaking stop? I can answer your question. When the president gets around to appointing a government. I would point out to you that about 20% of the government are Trump appointees, and the other 80% in appointed positions are Obama holdovers or vacancies. I lay this again at the feet of Reince Priebus. We are now deep into the first year of the administration, but the president has no loyalists in these individual departments, which is why the leaking from the intelligence committees continues, or I should say the intelligence community continues.
Well, Roger, we've got John Rappaport, who is going to come on. We're going to split this hour between you and John. This has been such breaking news. We want to keep you on, but also bring John Rappaport in with us and get his opinion on what he's heard from Roger Stone, as well as the other news of the day. Thank you for joining us. John Rappaport, site is No More Fake News. You've been on top of fake news for a long time, John. Welcome.
Good to be here. Thank you. I would just double down on pretty much everything that you've been saying and Roger's been saying here. If you don't go on the offense, then you're always playing defense. And if the enemy is strong enough They're going to keep you distracted and operating on 2 dozen fronts all at the same time, trying to plug the gaps, and it's not going to work. So from the beginning, when we were all saying, do not let the Clintons off the hook.
Yes.
This is not a dead issue. The Clinton Foundation is not a dead issue. The money laundering foundation, the U.S. uranium deal, which the Clintons, both of them, were so instrumental in, which gave 20% of U.S. uranium production to Putin and Russia, that I've detailed many times. That is not a dead issue. None of this, the email scandal, Hillary's email server, that is not a dead issue. And, of course, neither is the Obama team spying and leaking on the Trump team. None of this is going to, if you just let it go and say, we're being nice guys and we're moving on. Well, we see how that worked.
Yes.
This Russia collusion story with Trump, etc., is never going to go away. And if you want to stop it, you have to stop it by going on the offense and saying, here's what the real collusion looks like, folks. 20% of U.S. uranium to Russia. The Clintons were up to their necks in it. Money. And just go back over the whole thing, including, of course, the Clinton Foundation, chapter and verse. Go on the offense. And I'm sorry, but Trump has to clear his head. I mean, if he wants to clear his head, if he can't find anybody to appoint to these key posts that falls in line with the agenda that he promised the voter, then he's going to have to do it himself. He can't just stand by and say, well, another screw up, so who can I appoint now that will appoint the person I want? It doesn't work that way after a certain point.
Absolutely. And so now what we've seen is a revival. Actually, it's a story that's been around for several months. We talked earlier to Lee Stranahan. It's now getting traction, and that's what actually happened in Ukraine. Another aspect of this corruption. We're going to have hearings on it tomorrow by Grassley. Had a very interesting report earlier from Lee Stranahan. There's so many different aspects to this that have just been left there on the floor. Attorney General Sessions has not done anything to it. And as I pointed out before, it's just as much of a problem that he gave these people a pass as it is that Comey gave Clinton a pass. So now Comey and Clinton and all the rest of them are getting passes from Attorney General Sessions, especially the people that have been flagged by the FISA court. The FISA court telling us that we've had massive violations of the law and our Attorney General is sitting on the sideline.
Well, think about this, too. When you talk about playing defense and offense, yeah, we've been playing defense with the Trump-Russia thing and all the allegations against Trump. We've defended all of them and won. But think about this. Obama spying on the American people in the Trump campaign. They haven't addressed that. They haven't played defense on that. They just take it. How about Ukraine? All the stuff on Ukraine. Does Clinton play defense on that? No. Does the DNC, Wasserman Schultz, does she play defense on all the charges with the DNC fraud lawsuit? No. So these people are never on defense. They never defend the allegations against them, even though they're true. They're always on offense, even if they make it up. So maybe it's time to take a page out of their playbook.
All right, let's recap with Roger Stone. Roger, you told us that you believe that both the Attorney General as well as the White House Chief of Staff positions are in play. It's a major shakeup in the White House. We've got one good name that came out of it, but we've got some very troubling names that are coming out of this as well.
Yeah, David, to recap, the breaking news here is that Richard Pompeo, under consideration to become White House Chief of Staff, to become U.S. Attorney General. This is deeply troubling because I doubt he would prosecute the CIA for their involvement in the spying. And both Dina